I want you to imagine forging a decades-long trusted relationship with a company that has promised to protect your secret information and your private communications using their encryption devices. Now I want you to imagine that for 50 years, every one of those secure messages was quietly being read by the U.S. and German intelligence services. This story begins with a company named Crypto AG. It's a respected Swiss encryption device-making company founded in 1952. Its cipher devices were considered the most trusted devices in the world. So trusted, in fact, that the governments of over 130 countries used these devices. And in 1970, the CIA and Germany's BND, which is Germany's CIA equivalent, they teamed up and secretly purchased the company through various shell corporations and began issuing devices that contained backdoors in the encryption. This continued from the 1970s all the way through the early 90s, when Germany's intelligence apparatus, maybe through the potential of growing a conscience, but most likely not, they decided to bow out and they sold their stakes to the CIA, which left the CIA in complete control of Crypto AG products. And the company operated under CIA control from the early 1990s until 2018, when Crypto AG was dissolved and its assets were split into two different companies, which was Crypto International AG and Cy1 Security. And in 2020, the Washington Post, along with SRF Switzerland and ZDF publication, published a report revealing that Crypto AG had been lying about the security of their devices for nearly 50 years. This is the story of Operation Rubicon, the largest, longest-running, and most successful espionage operation of the Cold War. And today's topic is about, in my opinion, what is the modern-day consumer version of this story. And that is the case of several international companies with links to state-sponsored surveillance activities who are buying up VPN companies quietly and then marketing them heavily in new media as privacy conscious and privacy protecting tools. Welcome back to the OPSEC Podcast. I am your host, Alan Pace, and today we're going to cover the subject of VPN ownership and why it matters. I've seen a lot of talk recently about a company called Kape Technologies, which is a Israeli-based company, being called out for boycott because of people's distaste and disdain for the behavior of the Israeli government. And so I figured that this was a proper time to speak about this subject. Now, I understand the want and interest in people to support companies or organizations that act within their ethical standards. However, the recent uptick in this subject is surprising to me because this is not a new event. The Kape Technologies company has purchased ExpressVPN specifically, which is the one being called out to have people boycott and cancel their ExpressVPN memberships. Now, this acquisition happened in 2021, so it is not new. The fact that it's coming up in social media towards the end of 2025 is the part that surprises me. But regardless of the trigger that causes the discussion, I believe the important point when it comes to choosing a VPN or anything that is a privacy-focused product or service is trust. Because that's what we're doing when we use these products. We are taking trust out of one group's hands and replacing it into another group's hands. In the case of a VPN, we are taking the trust from our internet service provider, which we have none with because they openly log our internet traffic, and that is part of their terms of service. Then we place the trust in our VPN that we subscribe to because they claim not to keep logs and track our internet traffic. Now, the country of ownership of any specific VPN is really what determines the laws that they must abide by. Most countries have some form of surveillance laws these days where they are legally able to demand logs from companies such as VPNs. Some have way more strict, way more powerful laws in place for surveilling their own citizens, such as China or Russia. And those countries' governments are capable of requiring internet service providers and VPNs to secretly hold logs and hand them over to the government at their request. So no log policy is not really relevant in countries with histories of mass surveillance on their own population. Now, when it comes to the hot button subject of the week, which is the Israeli-owned company called Kape Technologies. They are a company that was founded by a previous company called Crossrider, and they were known for malicious adware that would inject ads into people's browsers. They, at some point, decided they were going to rebrand themselves into a privacy company, and they changed their name and decided to start purchasing up VPN companies. Now, currently they own several, but the big ones are ExpressVPN, CyberGhost, PIA, and Zenmate. They also own a host of VPN review websites that list all of their VPNs at the top conveniently. So I would not trust any VPN website that is not a third party and independent source. Now, Kape is, in my opinion, not an extremely trustworthy company. They specialized previously, as I said, in adware. They have been said to employ members out of the Unit 8200, which is the Israeli NSA, essentially, cyber operations and hacking unit that is famous for creating products such as Pegasus and other spyware as well. So to me, Kape Technologies does not pass the sniff test of trust for a company that I'm looking at placing my trust in when it comes to protecting my data, or believing and trusting them that they don't log internet traffic and are not monitoring or somehow placing malicious tracking software in their desktop apps. Some other examples of VPNs that are owned by Israeli companies are VPN, which has been accused of using their paid customers as exit nodes for DDoS traffic, as well as having no encryption, no logs, and no safety, which is effectively a turning your computer into a botnet zombie computer. Another Israeli-owned VPN called Urban VPN was a free Israeli VPN service that was also found using their clients' devices as peer-to-peer routing, similar to the VPN. And possibly the most publicly acknowledged example of shady Israeli VPN companies was a company called Anavo Protect. They were purchased by Facebook, and Facebook marketed the service as a VPN and secretly used it to track the behavior of Facebook users, and was eventually banned from the Apple App Store for harvesting data that was against the Apple terms of service. So when it comes to Israeli-owned companies, they consistently show ties with the Israeli government and their surveillance policies, as well as the extra shady behavior of adware, malware injection, and the connection with botnet networks. They would be a hard no for me, and definitely not pass any trust test that I could possibly apply to them. Now, also, it's worth talking about other countries that are doing the same thing. I know that the Kape Technologies and the connection with ExpressVPN is being called out right now because of the world watching the Israeli and Gaza conflict. However, the same thing is happening on the other side of the world when it comes to China, or companies based out of China who are purchasing up VPN companies or creating VPN apps and getting them approved and placed in the Apple App Store or the Android Google Play Store. Now, when it comes to China and companies that are operating either for or in parallel to or underneath the rules and regulations of the Chinese government, the major thing that we see is essentially hidden ownership. Everybody knows that a Chinese corporation is 51% owned by the Chinese Communist Party and 49% owned by whomever else actually owns the company, which gives them majority control of whatever decisions are being made. Now, these companies are really good at creating products and VPN companies that appear to be Western owned. But when you start doing a little bit of investigation, you find out that they're in fact owned by a company in Hong Kong. For example, TurboVPN, that is a fairly popular VPN that I've heard of over the years. It is owned by a company called Qihu 360, which is a Chinese company tied to the Chinese Communist Party and contracts with the People's Liberation Army, or the PLA. Apple has removed similar apps for policy violations due to potential exposure to Chinese surveillance under national security laws. XVPN is another one owned by a company out of Chengdu. Operates out of Hong Kong with a front company. It's marketed to the U.S. and targeting teenagers using TikTok as a ban workaround. Now, there's several other examples of Chinese-owned VPNs, such as SuperVPN, UFO VPN, which is one of my favorite names, and a company called PureVPN. All of these companies are variants of Chinese-owned. Most of them are operated out of Hong Kong shell companies, and they claim to have no logs, but most of them have either been in scenarios publicly where their logs were either leaked because they were discovered on the open internet, or they were handed over to either U.S. law enforcement. And the fact that they are owned by Chinese parent companies means that they have most likely given full access to their networks to the Chinese government. Russian VPN companies are very similar to China when it comes to zero expectation of privacy, zero guarantee of security or privacy. Russian government has jurisdiction to have full access to user behavior, any logs, and also in many cases they are required to keep logs based on whatever the government says. Kaspersky Secure Connection is one of those VPNs, and they are an arm of the Kaspersky Labs, which is a famous antivirus and vulnerability hunting company. However, they are still required to abide by Russia's data retention laws and allow the FSB access to their traffic. The US and the EU have banned Kaspersky products from government use, and if the United States government refuses to use it, then I imagine that most people, regardless of what country you live in, would probably consider that suspect and not trustworthy. RusVPN, Planet VPN, also rebranded services with likely Russian ownership. Their offshore registrations are attempts at hiding Russian control. They have no audits and questionable transparency. So, again, they don't pass the sniff test of trust. Other surveillance states, such as UAE, are worth examining as well. Now, ZPN is a known VPN company that is based out of UAE, and the UAE is specifically known in the intelligence world for extremely invasive cyber laws, as well as very aggressive cyber operations to any of its competitors or foes of the government. The UAE has been known to previously launch apps such as Totalk, which was a chat app that was actually found to be government-monitored spyware. Now, it's really worth bringing up what a VPN does do and what it does not do, because I think there's a lot of incorrect assumptions that a VPN is a tool that protects all of your privacy on the internet and everything you do is anonymous. And as a matter of fact, I have heard ExpressVPN commercials on various other podcasts that I listen to, where the person says just that comically about ExpressVPN. Now, the VPN itself doesn't matter regarding this subject. If the VPN is a trustworthy VPN, it does the same thing that any of the other ones do, as long as they are maintaining trust. And that is, it does two things. It encrypts a tunnel from your ISP to the VPN server, and it shields your IP address, which is provided by your internet service provider. And what that does is gives away your physical location. IP addresses can be geolocated and easily tracked to your exact location. For example, your home router. Your home router has an IP address that is issued to you by your ISP service, and you can look that up and it'll show up on a map very close to or within the proximity of your home many times. Not all the time, but much of the time. A VPN does not give you anonymity. It simply does not do that. So if you hear a commercial or you see an ad or you hear somebody talking about a VPN protecting your privacy 100% and keeping you private and secure and anonymous, then run as fast as you can away from that service, because that is nonsense. It simply encrypts your connection from your ISP to the VPN service, and it protects your IP address from being exposed. Therefore, your internet traffic is not seen by your ISP, and the websites that you're searching do not see your IP address. That is all a VPN does. Any other claim is nonsense. So some red flags to keep an eye out for when searching for a VPN service is free VPNs are no-goes. Free VPNs are just like pretty much every other free thing. It's not free. If it's free, then it's not a product. You are the product. So do not trust that VPNs that are free will allow you proper privacy or protection of any kind. Keep an eye out for companies that have independent audits and prove that they have no log policies. Be aware of marketing strategies that put emphasis on unlimited data or speed over security or privacy. That is a gimmick. You will have lower speeds with a VPN than without one, hands down. Now, also, spend a little bit of due diligence time and look up the company that you're looking at. If they have a parent company that is sketchy or in a foreign country that's known for extreme surveillance practices such as Hong Kong or UAE or Israel, then maybe they're not the ones that you want to place your trust in. Also, if the parent company has a sketchy past and background, like Kape Technologies does, using adware or spyware, or with links to intelligence agencies, again, you might not want to place your trust in them. Because if the CIA or the NSA decided to come out with a VPN service that they guaranteed privacy and security with fast speeds, would you decide that that was trustworthy? I bet you they would sell a total of 0 subscriptions. So if the company, like Kape Technologies, has sketchy background with the intelligence apparatus of Israel, which it does, they are now disqualified from our privacy profile. They don't pass the sniff test. So you might be asking or wondering, what are the green lights to look for when it comes to seeking out a trustworthy or acceptable level of trust in a VPN company? My opinion is that the VPN service parent company needs to be based in a privacy-friendly jurisdiction. Switzerland, Panama, Sweden, Iceland, these places are all very privacy-focused. They have strong laws. However, Switzerland is changing that. We'll cover that later. Transparent leadership, open security and privacy audits, anonymous bill pay opportunities if you want to purchase your subscription without your identity attached to it, and clear and public no-log audits through a third-party verification company. So what's the big lesson here? The big lesson is this: a VPN does not equal automatic privacy. It simply doesn't. What it is outsourcing your trust. It's taking your trust away from a group that you know you cannot trust and placing it in the hands of a group that has given you enough data and proof to earn your trust. Check who owns the VPN, not just where their servers are located, but where the parent company is located. Stay away from VPNs that are free. They typically are known for logging activity and selling your data. Use only audited and reputable providers based in safe jurisdictions. And also, it's worth remembering that a bad VPN could actually be worse than or less private than no VPN at all. Because if you take your trust from your internet service provider and you place it in the hands of a malicious actor, they are able to do more damage to you and your privacy than your internet service provider, who is not malicious but just logs all of your traffic. So which VPN companies do we recommend, you might be asking? Now, I will preface this with saying that I can already hear the internet comments about my opinions on this and how ridiculous and wrong I am. And that's okay. Everybody has their own opinions on this thing. I really just want people to do due diligence on their own behalf and find the product that works for them, that they're comfortable with. Having said that, Proton VPN is a company that I have used for a number of years. I know many friends and family members and coworkers and colleagues that use Proton VPN and love it. I have had good experiences overall with their service. Sometimes it can be a pain in the butt by having their server IPs listed and blocked by a company's websites or Cloudflare or whatever. But they have a solid privacy-based business model They are based out of Switzerland, which for the time being is still a shining light for privacy and data security. Now, as I had mentioned earlier in the podcast, that is possibly changing. Switzerland is in the process of changing some of their laws from privacy respecting to nearly surveillance state level requirements. And Proton they have stated publicly that if that happens, they will be prepared to move their headquarters out of Switzerland into a different country. And they are currently already taking steps to do that. The next VPN service that we recommend is Mullvad. Now, Mullvad is a Swedish company, and they promote themselves as primarily focused on privacy. They allow users to create accounts with no email address and collecting minimum payment data. So essentially, all you have to do is figure out a way to get your money to them. They accept cryptocurrency. They accept mass payment cards. They accept cash. You can mail cash to them if you like. They have a very strong reputation for privacy, as well as the minimal collection of user data when it comes to signing up, and audited no-log policies. The third recommendation is NordVPN. NordVPN is owned by NordSec, which is a cybersecurity firm based in the Netherlands. However, it operates the NordVPN service from Panama to ensure maximum privacy benefits. Panama has privacy-friendly laws and requires no data retention for companies to operate within its jurisdiction. So that is a strong win for privacy-conscious customers. They have strict no-log policy at NordVPN and have it independently verified through audits by the Deloitte company, which is kind of a big deal. So they are very proud of that fact. Now, Nord does focus on performance as well as privacy, and they have what is called NordLynx protocol, which is marketed towards streaming services and gaming activities. So for basic VPN service, any of these three companies pass the privacy sniff test and the trust sniff test that we use here at OPSEC Podcast. Proton VPN, Mullvad, or NordVPN. Now, we are not affiliated with any of these companies. It's just the ones that we are familiar with, that we have looked into, and that we can safely recommend to our customers when we're doing privacy audits for people or doing any type of OPSEC work for a organization that is using our service to help them have a better security posture. Now, there is two other VPN services that I want to give honorable mention to, and they are relatively new. NIM VPN, which is spelled N-Y-M. NIM VPN is a service that I'm playing with currently that offers multiple hop VPN service. It offers I believe a 2-hop and a 5-hop for maximum privacy. That operates very similar to Tor or the Onion network, but within a specific VPN service network instead of exterior nodes like the Tor network operates. I have had mixed results with it, but for maximum privacy, it is being marketed as an extreme option for privacy seekers. Now, NimVPN is based out of Switzerland as well, and it focuses on what they call decentralized privacy using a thing called a mixed net to protect against surveillance and metadata tracking. Now, their claim is that the mixed net generates network noise that obscures user data and prevents surveillance through essentially sandboxing data packets with what they call noise, which is just bogus data packets. That is a lot for the average user and very much not necessary, but for extreme privacy cases, it's a good option. The other multi-hop option is a company called OPSEC. Now, they partner with Mullvad to have multiple hop nodes as well, and they have their own servers that manage traffic through Mullvad. So Mullvad is not capable of seeing the traffic from Obscura users. Again, these last two, NimVPN and OPSEC are both extreme cases, use cases, and they are multi-hop extreme technologies. And usually what that means is much more reduction of performance. So I don't believe that those are viable options for everyday users. But they're worth looking at if you need or want that extreme level of privacy protection. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the OPSEC Podcast. I hope that you found this information about VPN ownership and selection valuable. Let us know on social media if you guys have any topics that you want us to cover or any deep dive you want us to go down and research, and we are open to suggestions. But until then, we're just going to keep plugging away and continue doing what we're doing. So remember, your privacy and your security is your responsibility. I am Alan Pace, your host, signing off until next time.